But thank you everyone for being here. This is a joint meeting of the Government Committee and the Health and Human Services Committee, called by Victor Davila, counselor in the city of Springfield. And this is basically this is not to do with any individual or any, this is to go over the policy that the city has in place for rabid animals. And Commissioner Calton has informed us that this policy's been in place since the year 2000. And I remember this policy very well through Pat Sullivan in the Park Department when we had to deal with rabid animals and we had to go through this process. And it was very effective. And Victor, would you like to start the meeting off?
Thank you, Councilor Santinello, and thank you to Commissioner Hanna for being here and Solicitor Payne. As Councilor Santinello expressed, at least for my purpose of today's meeting and my expectation, so that we're all clear who does what each department is expected to do. In essence, so that we all sing out of the same sheet. I am not going to refer to particular incidents, although I'm sure that might come up in the conversation. But I personally, I have to say that I distract that the image of the city commissioner running over from what the best judgment was the right thing to do in that moment for that person, it bothers me. And so I think we all need to be cognizant of what the policy is, what each person is expected to do, so that moving forward, we all know where we are. And so, at least that's where I am. Those are my thoughts right now. And so I will be doing some learning today because I don't know what the policy is. So, with that being said, Councilor, so do you have anything else? Maybe we can start with Commissioner Calton?
Yes.
Okay.
Commissioner Calton?
Certainly. So the City of Springfield Department of Health and Human Services does have a policy that is a wildlife removal rabies policy. The policy was first instituted in the year 2000. It was revised in 2015, and I reviewed it in January of 2021. Again, I have said that any recommendations for policy updates and or changes can certainly be taken into consideration and forwarded to the Public Health Council through myself so that we can take that into consideration. I've asked the staff here to put the policy up on the screen so that we can review it together. So there is some understanding of what we have in place currently for the city of Springfield. So if Sean is able to share the policy, then. Okay. Thank you, Sean. Good job. Great job. Hi. Come in.
Oh, Mr. Howard, how are you?
How are you, pal?
So let me just say, you can see on the top right-hand corner where it said the policy number is 5.4. The effective date originally was June of 2000. It was revised in July of 2015 and reviewed again in January of 2021. This is not going to take long to read. I know you all are very skilled at reading, but I think I'd like to articulate it for us. The policy: rabies is a preventable virus disease. It can spread to people and pets if they are bitten or scratched by rabid animals. Rabies in the United States is mostly found in wild animals like bats, raccoons, skunks, and fox. Under Massachusetts General Laws, Chapter 111, Prevention of the Spread of Rabies, CMR 330, that is the Commonwealth code that we use in order to initiate this policy. The Springfield Department of Health and Human Services shall adhere to the following procedure when responding to a wildlife exhibiting behavior consistent with suspected rabies. Procedure: to protect the public from situations where wildlife presents a threat to the public health by responding effectively to incidents. Any person having knowledge of the following shall report immediately to the animal inspector at the Department of Health and Human Services. I have also given you a document that can be put up that is the appointment of the animal inspector for the city. That is done through the mayor. It is notarized, and we have a copy that we will put up on the screen. So the animal inspector shall be dispatched to the scene to determine if the animal is sick and displaying symptoms consistent with rabies, a discharge from the either mouth, difficulty walking or walking in circles, or appearing paralyzed, appearing intoxicated, or making unusual sounds. If the animal inspector determines that the animal is displaying any of the symptoms above, the animal inspector shall call the licensed wildlife agent contracted by the City of Springfield Department of Health and Human Services. The licensed wildlife agent shall trap the animal and keep the head intact to be sent to Jamaica Plains Laboratory for testing. Animal inspectors shall ensure that the head is sent and the proper forms are filled out. We have to fill out forms in order to document that we've sent that head to Jamaica Plains. A Springfield resident who observes an animal exhibiting symptoms described above can call the Department of Health and Human Services, and the above protocol will be followed by the animal inspector at the expense of the city. So if it is on a resident's property and we have to go there and trap that animal with the suspected behavior, the city will pay for the removal of that animal. Removal of problem wildlife causing property damage is the responsibility of the property owner. So if there's a wildlife on a property owner's home, then that is their responsibility. If it's getting in their garbage, if they're just being a nuisance, it is the homeowner's responsibility to remove that animal. The homeowner can engage the services of a licensed wildlife agent. However, the expense will be the responsibility of the homeowner. The City of Springfield is not in the business of removing healthy animals. So that is the policy as it currently stands. Happy to answer any questions.
Thank you, Commissioner. I do have some questions with that, if I may.
Sure.
And thank you for putting this forward to us and review on the existing policy. When we talk about animal inspector, are we talking about somebody from the city or somebody who's contracted with the city?
Someone from the city. Here's the document. You should have a copy of this document.
There it is,
Oh, that's it, okay.
Sean, could you put up the animal inspector document?
Oh, that's the one you
please?
told me that when we talk about,
Yeah,
okay, I
so
got you.
we have a document that there it is. That's the animal inspector document. The animal inspector is appointed by Mayor Sarno, and he signs off on it. His signature is notarized. It is sent to the Commonwealth of Massachusetts.
Yeah,
And so everyone knows who that individual is for the city of
so
Springfield.
that individual is Stephen Davis.
That's correct.
Okay, good, excellent. And when was he appointed?
Steve has been an employee of the city of Springfield for about 38 years.
God bless him.
So
Okay.
he is not new to our city,
Okay.
and he is appointed on an annual basis. This expires in April, so we will do a reappointment document that looks like this one.
Excellent, okay. Now, you talked about the symptoms of an animal potentially exhibiting rabies. And just for clarity purposes, so people at home, the public can review them, some of the symptoms are discharge from the eyes or mouth, difficulty walking or walking in circles, or appearing paralyzed, appearing intoxicated, or making initial sounds. Now, Commissioner, if I understand this correctly, if there is an animal at a private residence who is exhibiting this symptom, it is the responsibility of the homeowner.
No, if the animal at a private residence is exhibiting these symptoms and we go and assess that those symptoms are there, we will remove that, at the expense of the city.
Okay, the same thing that will be in public roadways.
That's correct.
Now, when the animal inspectors, I think the easiest thing will be to trap them, correct? To try to trap them.
That's
safely.
correct.
Okay, and then I'm sure there's a process to humanely euthanize the animal and get the testing done, so forth and so on. Because the risk of this is not only, of course, biting humans, but biting on the animals, which in turn will become infected with the risk.
Potentially dogs and
Yeah.
cats, yeah, we certainly would be concerned about those as well.
Correct, but one thing that maybe, I'm glad you're here, so there may be some chime into this. The police department, what role, and DPW, what role would they play, welcome, in this?
Well, as you can see, DPW is not in our policy. The policy is very specific to the Department of Health and Human Services and our contracted entity that we deal with as far as wildlife is concerned. We do not, to my knowledge, our contracted entity, once they, and this sounds, just cruel, once they dispatch the head and send it in, they are responsible for disposing of the carcass. We do not send it to DPW.
But so that we all know a role, that wouldn't be the inspector, Mr. Sadis, that would be the company which we contract Mr. Matthews.
That would not be, Mr. Stathis would not be the person who separates the head from the body.
Oh, yeah.
He is not the person who will dispose of the rest of the carcass.
Who's that person?
That person would be our contracted wildlife entity.
Which is,
Right now, we're using Bremen.
the reason I'm asking, Commissioner, because I got here in Mr. Matthews, which apparently they're the ones that are, in charge of, disposing animals. Is that the same person? Is that the same?
I'm not sure. This looks to be specific to TJO Animal Control. To my knowledge, this is not a PO from the Department of Health and Human Services.
Right, because what I'm showing, the commissioner is a PO purchase order for $18,500 to a Van Matthews. Trip to TJO Animal, so is that then the rabbits, the cats that unfortunately perish, roadways? Is that,
We have
if you could answer it.
We have two members of TJO on here. This
Right.
$18,000 PO is not consistent with the rabbit animal policy that I have. This is not.
Okay, good. I do have some more questions in a second, Commissioner. The representative TJO, are you able to speak to my question? Welcome to the meeting, by the way. Let me, are they muted?
Hi,
Can you hear me?
can you
okay?
hear me? You're
Yeah,
ask-
go ahead.
And you're
Go ahead.
asking the PO for Van Matthews?
The purchase for,
Yeah.
for $18,500.
Yeah, so
And
that,
what is that for?
that purchase order and that service covers cremation, removal and cremation of animals that have been euthanized at TJO.
Okay, and who do we use for animals that unfortunately perish in our roadways? How are they disposed?
Animals that come into us from the DPW, the roadkill animals are also disposed of in that way.
So that would be part of this purchase order agreement, correct?
Yes.
Okay, okay, thank you so much.
Sure.
Commissioner, so the animal control comes in, they determine the animal is, potentially very infected. the easiest thing will be to trap them. So my question is either to you, Commissioner, or to, Solicitor Payne. It is my understanding that the police department could act, is that correct?
In the CMR, it does reference, police officers having the ability to act, yes.
CMR will be,
CMR 330.
for the people at home, can you tell them what CMR is?
CMR is what is the controlled method response for the State Department of Public Health. There are lots of CMR.
CMR is Code of Massachusetts Regulation.
Okay, thank you. So are they allowed then to, I'm gonna use the word euthanize a potential rabid animal on the
They-
roadways?
If you look at the CMR, and thank you, Judge Payne. If you look at the CMR, police officers are referenced within the CMR
Okay,
330.
uh. Is that? I just wanna be very, Commissioner, the reason I'm asking is because I wanna be very clear, because I still have that picture in my head of the car going back and forth, forward and backwards. Can you refer what 330 says? If you don't mind, please.
I have it here, Code of Massachusetts Regulation, thank you, Judge Payne. This is the prevention of the spread of rabies, and in this code, it does talk about police officers having the ability to are contained within the code, and I did not highlight that, but they are contained within the code.
Okay, so if I were to say that they do have the ability to euthanize the dog, the animal by lethal force, that would be appropriate, that would be. pretty much accurate?
They are mentioned in the code, and I
Okay.
would like to find the exact language so that I am not telling you something that is not consistent with the
understand.
CMR.
I understand, okay. Thank you, and so. So going back to the policy, the animal getting sent over and tested, and I'm sure if there's an issue, people will be notified, correct? If the animal bit somebody?
Yeah, the annually in the United States, there are probably about 60,000 what might be scratches and or bites, and I'm talking about the entire United States.
Right,
We do not have, to my knowledge, a case where an individual has expired and or died from rabies in my knowledge in the last 10 years.
okay, I understand. Councilor Santinello, I have some more questions, but I wanna give you a ability to our colleagues to have questions. Do you have questions yourself you wanna ask? Before we go to.
Well, I'd like to open it up to the members of my committee and your
Sure,
committee.
sure.
If they have any questions, anyone have any questions?
I do. Yes, I do. Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Chair. Commissioner Colton, thank you for sharing that policy with us. Who gets that policy? I mean, is that distributed to department heads? Because I don't know if we've seen that policy before. So who would know that?
So you probably have not seen it before, so that's an excellent question, Counselor Walsh. The policy is something that should be known and has been distributed to dispatch, and so I believe that dispatch is aware of the process that is used. As a matter of fact, when I've spoken with them, they told me that they were aware that they call Steve Stathis. Now, whether or not they have seen or acknowledge the written policy, I think that's an excellent recommendation that we redistribute it so everyone is aware of what the current policy is.
And I also want to follow up with that. I know you said that there is a policy, there are specific people to call. Are they on call 24 hours?
We certainly can, yes. So let me say on call 24 hours. Steve Stathis is an employee that is on call. Again, dispatch has his number. And so, and he's also the person that's called when restaurants burn down or we have to go and any emergency that relates to environmental health in the city of Springfield. So yes, he's on call, can be called, and he certainly can call Brayman if necessary.
Yeah, so I would
I'm gonna
imagine if
call
somebody,
Brayman the contract. Go ahead, I'm sorry, Counselor.
it's a, it's difficult to read some of that policy, to tell you the truth. But if an individual saw an animal, any animal they thought was rabbit, they probably would first call 911, I would guess, right? And then 911 would be able to direct them.
I think 911 would probably call dispatch. I think those calls come through one portal at this point. And so
Yeah.
that is dispatch, so that would probably be a part of the process.
Do we know how I don't know how to phrase this, the raccoon in question? I mean, how is that disposed of?
I have no, I cannot speak to the disposal of that particular animal.
I have a question on a follow-up, with Counselor Walsh. How important is that we recover the body of that raccoon? And why wasn't it reported, for testing?
Well, I think I want to be clear that this policy was followed. Steve Stathis was notified. He did notify Brayman. The contracted entity said that they could not get there within a certain period of time. And so the action was taken. Is it important that we send that head to Jamaica Plains? Yes. That's how we have the data around rabies in the city or in the region. So yes, it's important that we have that head and we're able to test it and acknowledge that that animal, in fact, was a rabbit animal.
So when that animal expired, did your office notify the people that were responsible for the expiration of that animal, that carcass had to be sent to Jamaica Plains?
It's my understanding that Steve Stathis, the animal inspector, was called back and told that the situation had been remediated or mitigated, that he was no longer needed for that particular call.
But that doesn't address the issue of having the animal tested.
That's correct. I have no knowledge where that animal is.
So Steve doesn't know you?
Again, Steve Stathis nor Brayman went to the scene because they were called and
Was called.
told that the situation had been mitigated and remediated.
Right, right. Thank you.
Go ahead.
Through the chair, I
Yeah.
just have another point, now that it's gonna be getting warmer and hibernation is over, I mean, a lot of people some of our constituents may see situations like this. Is this on our website or anything like that?
It is not.
What to do? Because obviously we know we live near the park. There are a lot of animals. I mean,
Mhm.
so I'm sure in a situation like that, people would like to know what to do.
Thank you, Counselor. Again, I think it's really important that we're having this discussion because we certainly can update and make sure that we have appropriate signage as well as appropriate documents on our website. So I do not believe we do have policies there, but I do not believe this policy is there. And to be quite honest, I did not look before I came here.
Thank you, Commissioner.
One last thing, Helen. Does the wildlife agent give a report, for example, of how many animals he's tracked or died or whatever? Do we know that at all?
That is the form that we fill out once we send, so yes. When our contracted entity traps an animal, there is a form that we have to fill out and send to Jamaica Plains. So yes, there is documentation.
I'd like to, Gator, go ahead.
I would have thought the park department played a role in this, but no, they do not.
They play a role in terms of assuring that our policy is consistent with their ability to enforce it. And so they do not play a role as far as trapping is concerned. I mean, we certainly do not want, and that's why we have a contracted entity. We don't want to put any of our city employees at risk, just as we don't want to put any residents at risk. So the process really is about, let's let the wildlife professionals do what they are paid and trained to do.
Mhm.
See, that was the case, Catering, when I was on the park commission, Danny was on the park commission.
Right.
That was our policy over the years, that we would contact Helen and the different agencies and they would take it from there. We didn't ask our employees to try to trap the animals or go near the animals because that would endanger them.
Mhm.
Right. Well, that makes a lot of sense.
Zaida?
Thank you very much, Mr. Chair and Mr. Other Chair. Um, Thanks for having this meeting. Like Councilor Davila, when I heard about the incident that happened, I was very concerned because I saw a lot of comments from the community. I guess one of them video recorded it, and it was very disturbing to learn that the inhumane way, or what seemed like the inhumane way of disposing of this animal, of the raccoon. So I'm wondering where we're going with this. And I know that the policy exists and we have an animal control officer that handles these situations. So I'm just wondering what are we going to do to make sure that, I guess, incidents like that don't happen again, and that we just leave it to the appropriate entities to take care of things like that. Thank you, Mr. Chairs.
Mhm.
Well, but
Thank you. Councilor Whitfield. If you could
Um,
unmute yourself.
Thank you, Mr. Chairs. I guess my question is, I'm sorry I missed the beginning of the meeting, but who called in the report of the raccoon?
I am not sure, to be quite honest. I believe it was dispatched. Steve Stathis, the animal inspector in my office, received a call. Steve Stathis was in Chesterfield at the time. He acknowledged that he called our contracted entity, who said that they weren't sure when they were going to be able to arrive. So from a policy perspective, the policy was followed. It was, my understanding was the timing of the contracted entity to get there. So I believe it was dispatch that called Steve Stathis.
Can we get a record of that dispatch report? Or where is the person who actually did this? Like, where is Commissioner? Was he invited to this meeting? Commissioner Calvi?
Commissioner Calvi was not invited to this meeting, Councilor. The purpose of the limited scope of this meeting, Councilor Whitfield, is to review the current policy. I am sure there's a plethora of questions that, at least in my mind, that have already arisen from what I have heard. But there's nothing that keeping us from having subsequent meetings, including calling the commissioner if need be to ask specific questions.
Yeah, because we're talking about this raccoon and the incident without the person who created the incident being here. And to me, it feels like um, a lot of the questions that Commissioner Colton Harris cannot answer would be able to be answered by Commissioner Calvi, or I mean, someone in the police department. When I saw the video, the police department was there, Commissioner Calvi was there. And I think that it's great that we got to the bottom of the policy, and now that we can put the policy on the website and have it available for folks. But the folks that caused this to happen, this entire meeting to happen in the first place, should be here, because we have specific questions for them that also we could try to prevent in the future. So I think a subsequent meeting with someone from the police department and the fire department is needed, so we can understand what really happened in this situation, so we could prevent it from happening in the future. Because even if the contractors couldn't get there immediately, I remember having a raccoon in the house and it stayed for like 3 hours until they could get there. So that doesn't mean just go ahead and run over a raccoon because no one could be called to the scene. And when I looked at the video, the raccoon was moving kind of slow. It wasn't like going crazy chasing anybody. And I have seen raccoons like that because the one in the house was protecting his baby, and that one was going nuts. So I'm just trying to figure out, what happened and that caused this meeting right here to happen. I think some of it it's unfair to be asking Commissioner Colton Harris because her staff did what they were supposed to do. They responded like they were supposed to. And if we want the real details behind what happened, the people that was there and involved should be here. And that's all I have to say. Thank you.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, thank you, Councilor Whitfield, for your words, and just to reassure you, when I begin the meeting, I'm very grateful that Commissioner Carlton is here providing some clarity, because I personally know nothing about this policy. And I think that, I think there's a breakdown here somewhere. Where's the breakdown? I don't know. But as I
Yeah,
started
there's
the
definitely.
meeting, is,
Mhm.
yeah, if I could finish, Councilor Whitfield, it's really bothering me that our commissioner or fire commissioner got into the vehicle for the world to see, looking like a raging person.
Maniac.
Going over this yeah, raging maniac. It's bothering me a lot. I
And
know
the
that he made
fact
a decision,
that
which claims, if I may, Councilor, I know he made a decision, from what he claims. But there will be subsequent meeting, Councilor, believe me.
okay.
And so for the purpose of this meeting, just to address what you said about being fair to Commissioner Carlton, who's always such a lady and a scholar, to understand and start giving some clarity. Because I think what is happening right now, in my personal opinion, they're doing this. I did everything right, my department is good. Well, obviously, there was a breakdown somewhere. Where that is, I don't know. And so, go ahead, I'll give you the last 30
Okay.
seconds if you want.
Thank you. And the fact that we are going over the policy is great because we do need to know how it's supposed to work. But I think we should get to the bottom of the situation, what happened. Um, and the questions that, and the reason that I'm saying what I'm saying, because the questions that are being directed to Commissioner Colton Harris should be directed at Commissioner Calvi and the police department. They were there. If it was a rabbit, whatever, how you say it, animal, they could have easily shot that animal, but they were standing over there like chilling,
Councilor Whitfield,
talking.
Councilor Whitfield, if I may, the police department was invited, they're not here. I will
Okay.
follow up why they're not here.
Okay. That would
So
be
that
nice.
Councilor Whitfield, so that you know, Commissioner Carlton was invited, the police department was invited, TJO, my apologies, they're here. DPW was invited, and the police department was invited,
Okay. So the
which brings me to
final
my
thing,
question.
yeah, the final thing
Go
that
ahead.
I wanted to say is um it was my understanding that the raccoon was supposed to be taken to Boston, um, to the Brahmin pest control area. I don't know if that's correct, and tested there, but we don't even know where the raccoon is. And to me, that in itself is a problem. Like there's something trying to be covered up. I'm just gonna call it what it is. And we need to get to the bottom of it to prevent this cruelty from happening to other animals in the future. And then there should be some accountability. It should be some accountability for the person who did the act. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you, Councilor Whitfield. Councilor Santiago? Do you have
No,
follow-up?
We could have a follow-up meeting very, very shortly, with Commissioner.
Absolutely.
And also with the police department and the DPW. I mean, because when you look at this and you've got a city department that disposed of this animal and didn't do it in the proper way, was not the body of the raccoon is missing. So there's a lot of questions that have to be answered. But I wanna commend Commissioner Carlton for coming here and bringing us up to date on the procedures, which have always been there. But in this case, it doesn't look like they were followed to the T,
Yeah. Uh,
not by a long shot.
yeah. If I may, Commissioner, so that I'm clear, you gave me something to read a little while ago, and it talks about the police officer not having authority to dispose of a rabid animal in private property, correct?
That's correct. Police officers have no local authority to help landlords with raccoons other than wild animals that are causing property damage. So police officers can't go on private property and dispose of.
Unless it's rabid.
That's correct.
So if you say an animal who appears to have rabies, they do have the authority to go in.
That's correct.
Okay, and my understanding, and please tell me if I'm mistaken, Commissioner. And the solicitor, you can chime in anytime if you wish. The police officer has the authority to shoot basically the rabid animal, correct?
The Division of Fisheries and Wildlife allows any state or municipal police officers to immediately kill raccoons, bats, skunks, foxes, or woodchucks that are displaying behavior that causes such officer to reasonably conclude that such animal is rabid.
Thank you, Commissioner, very kind. I will say this publicly. It will appear to me that, as I said a while ago, there's a breakdown. So we have two questions, I have two questions in my mind, which will be asked and they will be follow meetings. One, where's the raccoon's body? Nobody seems to know where it is. It needs to be tested. Do we know if it's rabies or not? Two, we know from the videos that the police were there. So why did it take the commissioner to run him over at the police not to euthanize the animal? We will be asking those questions. They're not here. They were invited to this meeting. The police is gonna be asked that question. I don't like Monday morning quarterbacking. I don't do that. What I do care about is the image of somebody, of a department head, running like a maniac, an animal over and over. That I'm very concerned about. And I will say this, the second time that I say this in less than a month. Department heads, be aware. Budget season's coming. We call you, we expect you here. We have big scissors, and I'm not kidding about this. It is an insult, it is disrespectful to this body when you ask to come in and you don't come in. Because the city of Springfield is being laughed at right now publicly. And I will do my duty as a councilor to protect the city to the best of my ability. I do have, if I may, thank you, Commissioner Legawas, you're truly a lady and a scholar.
But I want to just thank you all because I will make sure that this policy is on the city's website.
Yeah.
I will make sure that I am sending it out to all department
Right.
heads. So that is a good thing that came out of this
Yeah,
meeting.
absolutely.
So I just want to thank you.
Commissioner, may I make, before I turn it over to Councilor Whitfield, may I make a suggestion?
Sure.
If I may. One thing to me that I noticed here is, and given this unfortunate incident as a parameter, as some sort of a guidance. You have already stated that Mr.
Status.
Brandon, is that what you said?
Oh, right,
Oh,
you talking
status.
about the animals?
Status.
Yeah,
Status, right?
status, yes.
Steve,
Yeah, Steve, he was called, he was called off, so he never showed up on scene.
He was told to stand down.
To step
Yes,
down, so he never physically made it there.
that's correct.
So it would seem to me then that perhaps we should put in here, if appropriate, that the animals should be tried to be contained. I don't know how you do that, to be honest with you. I don't know how to contain an animal, but if that's not, and then if that's not possible, then to have the police officers discharge the animal, like you yourself said that it could do. You know, so that was. So anyways, those are my humble suggestions. And to be very clear, Commissioner, because this is a doozy, to be honest with you. Thank you, Commissioner. Thank you. Councilor,
I have a question. if an animal is found to be rabid,
Mhm.
is there any back checking to see if that rabid animal gave rabies to another animal?
We don't have any, procedure to be able to know that. I mean, there are so many animals, as you know, that, come in contact with raccoons, skunks, and other wildlife. It would be difficult to say, if they came in contact with another animal unless they were on a homeowner's property where that homeowner was able to observe
Okay.
that the raccoon came in contact with my dog. And so that's how that would get reported to us.
Thank you.
Sure, and just a quick time check, it's 2:45. I do have
You
some.
got Melvin Edwards.
Yes, I'm sorry, Council.
Melvin.
Melvin, you have a question? Council Edwards? No, okay.
Oh.
I have a member that probably has a question, but I'm gonna do Councilor Whitfield, then Mr. Stephen, afterwards. Councilor Whitfield, the floor is yours.
Thank you. I just have two questions. Well, three. This happened at the fire department. Is that correct? Anyone?
My understanding is that it happened at the fire department on Worthington Street, Counselor Whitfield. Again, that's my understanding. I was not there, so that's
Okay.
has been reported.
Well, thank you. And we have cameras, right? So we should be able to look at the cameras and see who picked up the animal. Is that a fair, accurate assumption I mean, we got cameras around most municipal buildings, so there should be a camera. And is that something that we can request? Some footage, and I'm talking to the chairs, not you, Commissioner. Thank you. Some footage, from that day, and maybe we can get to the bottom of who picked up the raccoon, because there should be some cameras out there. If it's a race, that will be a problem in itself, because they definitely use footage for when they want to try to uncover something or find someone, and they should do it in this instance. And then my second question is to Judge Payne, Solicitor Payne. Um, there is a city charter that says when the city council requests folks to come to the meetings, and I'm saying it in my own words, either the mayor or a representative department head of the department must come and show up and address what we have to discuss. And in many situations, department heads have been ignoring our requests to come to meetings and not showing up. And I want to know from you, what do you think the recourse is for that?
Well, I don't know who was requested to come here today. I did hear the chairman indicate that the police department was requested. Did you say DPW was welcome?
So
Yeah,
I'm not talking, I'm just talking in general, because I have requested many people to attend meetings and they refuse to, and they're department heads. And the mayor's not showing up. So I'm asking you this for my own edification. What do you think the recourse is?
Well, I think Counselor Davila gave a pretty good response when he says he has the big scissors. That's probably the best recourse I can think of right off the top.
What does that mean? Cutting them? Like firing them? Because I don't think we have the, what is big
No.
scissors?
Budget,
I want to hear
budget.
from the
That's-
league, huh?
Budget. You control the purse strings.
Purse strings? Oh, cutting the budget?
Yeah.
Yeah, but that wouldn't get rid of department heads. That would get rid of lower level staff, because the department heads ultimately make the decision. I know one recourse that we have is we can use our subpoena power, but we shouldn't really have to use our subpoena power every single time we want department heads to come to a meeting so we could do our job for the residents of the city of Springfield. So I'm gonna send you a written request for your opinion on that matter, and so that we can get a real legal opinion on what recourse city councilors can take and what should be done to the department heads that refuse to come to the meetings when we request them without notification, without anything, just saying, I'm not going to come. Don't give another time when they are available, just saying, I'm not going to show up to that meeting. I know that based on our city charter, that is illegal. And I also know that there should be recourse for those and actions that do that from the mayor of this city. And it shouldn't be about relationships or friendships. It should be about the government, the laws, and doing what's right. And so I will send you a written request for a opinion. Thank you, Judge Payne. Thank you.
Thank you, Councilor Whitfield. I do wanna, before I get to the councilors, if you allow me, indulge me, please, I do have a community resident here who does have a question. Sir, would you be able to state your name?
Yes,
and the address for the record, sir?
Stephen Howard, 1104 Wellington Street here in Springfield.
Sure.
Two questions. Follow up to the commissioner's statement. First question is, who gave that stand down order, and what have there been any follow-ups as to why that order was given?
So Steve Stathis, my understanding, received the call from the dispatch saying that the situation had been handled and to stand down. I will follow up again, but I have done internal investigations just to talk about what the communication was. So that's my understanding, that the call came back to him from dispatch.
And the second question, I believe, goes to folks who are on the Zoom. We've had some experiences, and one of them was a skunk that died on Withington Street. And when we called to have it removed, it was over the weekend, and we were told, well, it probably wouldn't be handled until Monday. But, you know, within a few hours, the skunk was actually removed. I don't know who did it. I didn't see who did it. It was removed. What is the procedure when emergencies like rabid animals are on your property or have died in the vicinity after hours or on weekends? How long can we realistically expect that situation to be resolved?
Who you asking, Mr. Steve?
I think it says
TJO?
unknown, the two
The two ladies, TJO, that would be TJO. TJO, can you answer that question? Heather? Did you hear the question? You have to unmute yourself.
Sorry about that.
You're still mute.
So if I
go ahead.
understood the question correctly, it sounded like you were asking about the removal of dead wild animals.
especially over the weekend.
Over the weekend.
Yeah, so,
And,
wild
at-
animals are not TJO animal control officer's responsibility. So we would refer people to the DPW.
And to your knowledge, do they remove animals at night or over the weekends?
I can't speak to the DPW's schedule or policies about that.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Steve.
Zaida?
Councilor
Thank-
Tawai,
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Chairs. And Mr. Howard actually asked my question. I wanted to know who was it that gave the order for the animal inspector person to stand down. And so thank you, Mr. Howard. Thank you, Mr. Chairs.
Thank you.
Thank you. I think it'd be wise to follow up next week with a meeting with the fire superintendent, and also to try to track down those videos that probably exist and could add some information that is desperately needed as to how this animal was disposed of, who took it away, and why it wasn't sent
right.
for testing.
And I will go back and put a timeline together for you so that you know when Steve received the call, and when he called Brayman and when he was told to stand down, so you have that as well.
Thank you, Commissioner Carlton. Just a quick time check, it's now 2:55. Does anybody have any questions? Excuse me, 3:55. Anybody has any questions?
Only question I have, did everybody see the video on this
Yes.
call, the full video, not the news media portion, the full video?
I only saw the news video. I only
All right,
saw
I
the
will-
news video.
I'm gonna share the full video with the counselors, because I want you guys to see the full why everybody is saying it's so cruel. and everything that took place and not just little clips of it. I do have the full video and I will be sharing that with all counselors, so you'll be prepared for the next meeting.
Thank you, Councilor Whitfield. If I may, before we close the meeting, Councilor Santinello. As I stated in the beginning, I would like Monday morning quarterbacking. However, it is very clear to me that, as I mentioned probably the fifth time in this meeting, there was a breakdown somewhere. Commissioner Carlton, I do appreciate you going over this policy with us and give us some clarity. Honestly, I am more disturbed now than when I first walked into this meeting. Because this is, in my opinion, may possibly rise to criminal activity. And I'm very concerned with that. And I'm very concerned, again, a department head looking like a raging person back and forth. Even though I understand from what has been reported publicly that it was acted in the best interest. To me, there was a systematic breakdown somewhere. Now that the commissioner has explained this, I have an expectation that if this happens again, that all involved know what to do. We cannot have a part two to this. And we will ask some questions because the city of Springfield has been made to look like a buffoon. And I will not allow that. This is a great city. I love this city. With that being said, thank you, Councilor Santello.
Yeah,
You can close out.
just to finish up on the meeting, I think in all fairness, we have to have Commissioner Colby here to explain the actions that he took, because we're looking at a video but not getting his side of the story.
Yes.
So I think in all fairness to him, he's got to be here and just explain what happened,
Yes, absolutely.
because.
Yeah, that's what we were asking from the beginning. That's what I was asking.
Yeah.
Why isn't
Yes.
he here?
Yeah. All right, anything else?
No.
All right, well, with that being said, thank you to everybody. Thank you for the interest in this. The count is now 3:57. And this joint meeting between the Health and Human
Thanks, John.
Services and the General Government is adjourned. Thank you.